Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game Foundations of Rome, which I played recently with a total of 4 other players, so a total of 5 players at the table. And the game features really quick, simple turns, so the downtime in the game is almost non-existent. And when it isn't your turn, you're probably thinking about what you want to do on your next turn. Here's what the game looks like. So you are building Rome together with the other players. You have your own player map, but you're really pulling things off that player map, and you're placing buildings or tokens on the central giant grid, the size of which depends on the number of players. We were playing with a full grid at 5 players. And it's a little bit like bingo meets a city building game. Bingo in that the whole grid are letters A through J, I think, maybe, and numbers 1 through 10. So 100 different spots on this board, and there are 100 different cards in the game, each card corresponding with a different number. Like there's a card that just says E8, and it'll come out in a card river, and you can pay on your turn. One of the options you have is to pay to gain that card and to claim that spot. You put a little token there. It looks like this type of token. You put that token on E8 to claim it as your own. One of the other things you can do on your turn is to build a building. And this is where my favorite mechanism is tied in. And the buildings do a few different things. In fact, the graphic design and the look of the game is really beautiful in that there are commerce buildings that look like this. So whenever you choose to take income on a turn, so you can, one of the things that you can do on your turn is just say, I want to make money this turn, and you gain $5 plus $1 per income building that you have, or per number on an income building that you have. There's those types of buildings. There are, I believe they were called civic buildings that add your population, this type of building. And there are another type of building, I forget the name of it, but they score points. Their primary purpose is to score points based on adjacency. So 3 different things to consider in the game when you're placing the building on the board. And I was talking about the graphic design. I really like that on the buildings, they have the numbers and the types, as well as the player color, but they also have that on your player mat. So at any given time, you can just look at your player mat to see what you've revealed, what's no longer there on your player mat, and that will tell you how much money you make, how many points you're making, things like that. But my favorite mechanism in the game is tied to this building placement, and it's really about the flexibility the game gives you in terms of building placement. So say I control E8. I gain control of it, and I want to place a commerce building that only requires one square, one cell here. So I do that. I place a commerce building that gives me a little bit of income. I put that commerce building here. And then later on, I decide, oh, I wish I had placed a bigger building. I now control D8 and C8. I can fit a bigger building here. I wish I'd done that. Many games, I think, would not let you build over a previously built building. But in this game, you are allowed to do that. So I can then pick up E8, pick up the building that I placed there, put it back on my player mat, and build a building that spans all 3 of these cells instead. So you can build larger buildings where you had smaller buildings. And this flexibility is wonderful. Really, early on in the game, I was honestly feeling a little bit of anxiety as I was playing, because I was like, okay, well, if I place this building here, that is giving up a space that I might have more room to work with later. And then I realized, oh, I can build over. I don't have to stress about this. I can place this building now, this smaller building now. And later on, if I am lucky enough to buy the space right next to it, then I can build over it. I can build a better building, a bigger building, a building with one of these giant shapes like this one, or this L-shaped building here. And that really made me relax and made me not overly process my decisions as much and try to stress about planning ahead. Rather, I could just play a little building and be happy that I got to play a little building. And later on, if I had the chance, I would build over it. So I really like the flexibility that the designer built into this game, Foundations of Rome. That I think it really, really adds to the gameplay that you're allowed to build over smaller buildings with larger buildings later in the game. That's my favorite mechanism of the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you can think of other games where you can build over smaller buildings that you previously placed, let me know about that in the comments below. Especially, I think it really makes sense in a game like this, where you are building in a central area where you can't control everything that other players do. Whereas on your own personal player mat in a game, I'm thinking of Tapestry, for example, one of my games, where you do have control over that. You have control over where you place things. No one else can influence that. The only decision that you don't know is exactly what monuments you get to place there. But in this game, Foundations of Rome, you don't necessarily have control over that. So let me know if you have a different favorite mechanism in Foundations of Rome, or if you can think of another game where you are allowed to build over smaller buildings that you previously built. Thanks.